You know, in the world of investing, we're always taught to chase the action, to follow the noise, to find that hot stock that's going to take off tomorrow. But what if the real secret to building wealth isn't found in all that frantic chasing? What if it's found far away from the crowd, in the quietest corners of the market, by an investor who literally chose to disappear?
Has anyone heard of getting rich slowly? It's such a simple question, right? But in our world of instant everything, it's actually kind of a radical idea. An investor named Nick Sleep once wrote that in a letter to his partners. And that one question just slices right through all the hype and gets to the very heart of a different way of thinking.
So, the guy who asked that? Yeah, he's one of the most successful investors you've probably never even heard of. He's a man who achieved absolutely phenomenal returns, all while deliberately making himself almost completely invisible. So, let's talk about the invisible investor.
This is Nick Sleep. From 2001 to 2014, his fund, the Nomad Investment Partnership, just completely crushed the market. But here's the thing. It's how he did it that's so fascinating. They didn't jump in and out of stocks. Nope. They just owned a tiny number of companies they knew inside and out. Because for Sleep, the real advantage wasn't about crunching more numbers. It was all in your head. It was psychological.
So what was the secret sauce here? What was the big insight that drove this incredible performance? Well, it really all boiled down to one single incredibly powerful idea he spotted in certain kinds of businesses.
He called it scale economies shared. I know, it sounds a little textbooky, right? But trust me, the idea behind it is super simple. Think about it like this. A company gets bigger and more efficient. Now, it could just pocket all that extra cash as profit, but what if it didn't? What if instead it deliberately passed those savings on to you, the customer, by lowering prices?
That one move kicks off this amazing, powerful feedback loop. Lower prices? Well, that brings in way more customers and makes them super loyal. More customers means the company gets even bigger. It gets more scale. That scale means their costs drop even further. And what do? You guessed it. They lower prices again. It's this beautiful, virtuous cycle. And over years, it builds a fortress around the business that's almost impossible for competitors to breach.
Now, you have to understand, this way of thinking is completely alien to how Wall Street normally works. There's this fantastic quote from Jeff Bezos that Sleep loved, because it just nails this whole idea. Bezos is basically saying that if you just look at the spreadsheet, the math tells you to raise prices now. But he knew deep down that playing the long game by consistently lowering prices would build something way, way bigger and more valuable 10 years down the road.
And for Nick Sleep, this wasn't just some abstract theory. He saw it happening in the real world. He saw this model being perfected by a couple of companies you might know, Costco and Amazon. He recognized them for what they really were, true compounding machines, and he figured this out long before most of the market ever caught on.
And this is the key to getting Nick Sleep. You have to realize he wasn't just playing the same game as everyone else, just, with a few different moves. No, he was playing a completely different game altogether. Just look at the two mindsets side by side. It tells the whole story. The crowd? They're obsessed with next quarter's earnings report. Sleep? He was thinking about where the business would be in a decade. Everyone else is trading like crazy, thinking all that activity means progress. Sleep? He understood the power of doing nothing, of strategic inaction. While the world was glued to the stock ticker, he was focused on one thing, the relationship between the company and its customers. And yeah, he was totally okay with people thinking he was strange for it. And man, that takes guts. It takes real psychological strength. There's this brilliant line from the economist John Maynard Keynes that Sleep loved to quote. It basically says, it's better for your reputation to fail in the normal way than to succeed in a weird way that nobody gets. Sleep chose that unconventional path because he knew that was the only way to get those unconventional and amazing results.
So if that scale economy shared idea was the what of his strategy, then the how he pulled it off was built on something that's maybe even rarer today, just radical, profound patience.
Get this, 10 months. According to the legendary Jack Bogle, that's how long the average investor holds a stock these days. 10 months. I mean, at that point, we're not even really investing anymore, are we? We're just renting stocks. It's like this giant game of musical chairs, and nobody wants to be left holding the bag when the music stops.
And this really makes you rethink what patience even means. It's not about just sitting there and being passive. No, it's an active, deliberate decision. Think about someone like Sleep or Warren Buffett. Every single day they wake up and choose not to sell a stock. That is a decision. It's them casting a vote of confidence, saying, nope, I still believe in this company.
And here's why that patience is the ultimate superpower. For Nick Sleep, the biggest sin in investing wasn't buying a stock that went bankrupt. The real catastrophe, the biggest error by far, was selling one of those incredible compounding companies way, way too early. Because the money you miss out on, the opportunity cost, can be 100, even 1,000 times greater than a total loss. Your own impatience becomes the biggest enemy of your wealth.
Which brings us to the final chapter of the Nomad story. And it's maybe the most telling part of all. A story about an ending that was actually the ultimate definition of success.
So, in 2014, after 13 years of incredible performance, Nick Sleep and his partner did something you almost never see in the world of finance. They just shut it down. They closed the fund and handed every single dollar back to their investors.
So why on earth would you walk away at the very top of your game? Simple. Because it was the ultimate act of living his philosophy. See, the goal was never to build some giant asset management business and get rich off fees. The goal was to make excellent long-term investments, and he knew that the bigger a fund gets, the harder that becomes. By closing Nomad, he ensured the mission was never corrupted. It was an incredible act of integrity.
And really, when you zoom out, that final act, it was a powerful statement about the entire system. He showed that the way the industry is set up, with its obsession over quarterly reports, the constant pressure to always be doing something, is fundamentally at odds with the patient, long-term mindset you need for real success.
This quote just sums it all up perfectly. If you want results that are better than average, you can't behave like the average investor. You have to be willing to play a minority sport. And as Sleep points out, one of the simplest and most powerful ways to be different from the crowd is just to be patient.
Nick Sleep chose to disappear from the investment world, but his wisdom has never been more relevant. And he leaves us with a quiet, powerful question to think about. In a world that prizes speed above all else, what could you gain in your investments and in your life by choosing to be patient?